says we basically tracked down about 125 specific actions that this administration, the Biden administration, and the Democratic Congress have done to slow down or stop oil production in America. 125 actions to stop oil production. We can see this headline that just came out this week. The Interior rolls out new restrictions on oil and gas leasing in the United States. Again, restricting the supply of oil and gas. What happens when you have less supply but the same demand? Prices go up, and not by a little, by a lot. On top of that, they're forcing food policies. Food and energy, right? Food and energy. They're forcing food policies all across the world. We showed you what happened in Sri Lanka. Here in the Netherlands, we've been covering this for a while. They're forcing the farmers to shut down. Now the Netherlands to buy out and close 3,000 farms. Why? To meet climate goals. ESG. In order to meet climate goals, we have to shut down the farms. Sort of like Sri Lanka. Wouldn't you think we'd learn to go, look what happened, and here's the result of that? So they want to shut down these farms for climate goals. The problem is with those farms is that in the Netherlands, it's the number 2 agriculture exporter in the world. They want to shut it down. The number 2 exporter in the world, 4 million cows, 13 million pigs, 104 million chickens annually. It's Europe's biggest meat exporter. Europe's biggest meat exporter and vegetables to much of Western Europe. Now, maybe we don't need the food. Maybe it's just extra food. Do we really need all that food? I mean, we have an obesity problem anyway, right? Do we really need that food? Well, as it turns out, yes, we do. This is directly from the UN's website. I kept the logo there so you can see it. UN report, global hunger numbers rose to as many as 828 million. That's almost 1 billion people in this world that are starving. 1 billion. 1 out of 8 people in this world are starving to death, and yet they want to continue to shut down our food production. It just doesn't make any sense, does it? Well, on top of it, we're fighting inflation. The Federal Reserve, the central bank, the ECB, the BOJ, everyone's fighting inflation. Prices are too high. The Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, says that his goal is to crush demand. He wants to make you broke. The fact that your job is paying you more money is a problem for them, because when you get paid more money, your employer has to raise their prices. Prices go up. But the biggest, while they're fighting inflation, food and energy are the biggest drivers of inflation. We can see this over and over, and again, this is directly off the UN's website, how food and energy are driving global inflation surge. This is September 12th of this year. So it's food and energy that are driving the inflation surge. But they're shutting down energy. The Biden administration is shutting down energy. They're shutting down food, which means less supply, which means higher prices. But the central banks are supposedly fighting higher prices, which are being led by food and energy. Kind of some circular logic in there. You can see these inflation drivers here. I always like to show you the charts. You can see just how much food and energy are driving that basket of prices higher. And so how can they be fighting it when they're stuck into this situation where now the Fed is like trying to tighten things, but they don't want to crash the whole economy. But if they don't tighten them, then inflation rages. Or they could just stop shutting down energy and stop shutting down food. That might be a better option. All right, here's where the hope comes in. I know this is a lot of bad stuff. Here's the good stuff. People are fighting back. People are waking up to this. People are starting to see this. And hopefully you'll take these ideas and you'll go discuss them with other people. And you can share the video and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Okay, there's protests happening all over the world. People are waking up to this. People are pushing back on this. And we're seeing it. Now we know that the U.S. is having the biggest impact on this right now. This is one of the reasons why the U.S. is one of the biggest targets. The U.S. is the example on the hill. The U.S. is going to set the stage. And so the U.S. has to be the example. And we are leading that example. We can see here that Blackrock faces scrutiny from 19 state attorney generals over ESG investments. So the attorney generals of 19 states are suing Blackrock because they're pushing these policies. Because they're pushing these policies that are harming people. They're harmful for people. They're causing prices to go up. They're not using their fiduciary duty to invest their money. We can see that this is growing. This is a big movement that's growing. We can see here the rise of state anti-ESG bills. Here in Texas, they said if you boycott Texas Energy, then Texas will boycott you. Texas enacted a Senate Bill 13, a law that prohibits the state from doing business with financial institutions that the state deems are boycotting energy companies. So if you're a financial institution like Blackrock or B of A or Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, and you work against their energy, then they're just going to boycott you. How's that? It says here that 10 financial companies and almost 350 investment funds have been named, including BlackRock, BNP Paribas, UBS Group AG. The Texas legislation is among a growing trend of anti-ESG legislation. 18 states have adopted it or proposed anti-ESG legislation or regulations. 18 states, this is happening. Another type of anti-ESG regulation prevents state fund managers from considering ESG factors when investing state funds. And so states are managing the people's money, and now they're only supposed to be thinking about the investment returns, like they should, not taking ESG things into consideration. In a statement, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said, quote, corporate power has increasingly been utilized to impose an ideological agenda on the American people through the perversion of financial investment priorities. They're weaponizing your money against you. ESG investments as putting ideology above shareholder profits. So you give them your money to invest it, but instead of trying to maximize your money or run the business the best they can, they're putting their ideology above everything else. But it's changing. We can see here 19 states attorney generals wrote the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now they're writing the SEC, getting them involved to look into BlackRock's ties to China and if it was prioritizing its fiduciary responsibility to investors. So fiduciary duty is a legal responsibility to do the best that you can. So now they're saying, hey, SEC, we think that they've violated this law, and we want you to go look into that. BlackRock invested and does business with Chinese companies that often flout environmental concerns, even as it pushes for U.S. companies to embrace net zero carbon emissions. So BlackRock owns all the companies with your money, and now they're buying U.S. companies and forcing U.S. companies to do very, very strict ESG compliance, which costs them a lot of money and makes them less competitive. But then they're also investing into China, into companies who don't abide by any of that. Seems like a conflict of interest. They want to look into that. They've also asked the SEC to examine the conflict in its fiduciary responsibility. BlackRock is using money of our state citizens to circumvent the best possible returns. On top of it, they're not getting good returns on your money. So we can see how this is happening. So people are starting to pull their money out of BlackRock. So we have 6 or 7 states who have now pulled their pensions away from BlackRock. We have 19 states that are suing BlackRock. We have now asset management companies popping up to compete against them. Strive Asset Management is one of them. Get your money out of BlackRock. They hate you. Why would you keep your money there? You can put it in a company like Strive Asset Management, backed by 2 billionaires. We got billionaire from PayPal, Peter Thiel, and hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman that are running this. Freedom lovers, they give you an opportunity somewhere else to spend your money or put your money, and that is making a massive difference. All right, so this is how we win, with our money. If the midterm elections didn't show you anything else, it's that your vote doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying not to vote. It probably doesn't work, but you might as well try. But what does work is you vote with your money. You can see how BlackRock is getting pushed back on right now. They're being forced to respond. People are pulling their money out. States are going after them, and it's going to force them to change. That's how we win. BlackRock is being forced to pivot. Mega banks are now quitting this whole net zero policy that they've had, and we see U.S. banks are starting to pivot away. The way that we win is voting with our money. We stop giving our money to corporations that hate us or work against our best interests. I'm hopeful. These are the cracks, and this is how we continue to blow it back open. But let me know what you think.
What we do here is go back.